It's bigger than any one state. There are multiple companies across the United States and across Europe that still procure voluntary carbon credits and use that on a voluntary basis. There are very few countries that permit, from an SEC perspective or SEC equivalent perspective, for a corporate to say, like Microsoft, who has a decarbonization goal, to say that they've hit their scope 1, their scope 2, and they're using voluntary carbon credits to reduce their scope 3 or whatever else they couldn't do in other means. Now, that is a jurisdictional dynamic at the regulatory level. When you look at the recent COP, when you look at Article 6 and what these countries are trying to do, they're moving in the right direction. That movement is, an ocean liner with no fuel, right? It's taking forever, but hopefully it gets to the right place where you see that. Compliance credits sound a bit more of what you're discussing. There are certain states in the United States, mainly on the West, Michigan, there's a few others, Washington, California, of course, that have been in the compliance credit market for a long time. They also are giving corporates and obligated counterparties the ability to buy voluntary carbon credits. Like, a carbon credit discussion globally is really around the voluntary system, which is very, very broken. And why is it broken? I've been doing this since Barclays days and doing Kyoto 1. It's broken because of lack of data, lack of verification.
Yeah, I got all that you said. Okay,
Yeah.
Disagree with you on some things there. A credit from a financial standpoint is something that a company can use, right? What I'm saying is that when we talk about carbon credits, right, that companies can get carbon credits, we throw that out like they're available. And they're really not available. They're available with the EU, but they're not available in the US. Credit, not that other thing you're talking about. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that we're clear when we're talking about investors that are looking at the whole financial picture to invest in. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the investors are not going to be investing in carbon credits.
I know
They're
that.
investing in a token on preservation and fund vehicle.
Yeah.
If there's an opportunity to launch a particular type of carbon credit, let's go through one scenario here because it's a co-invest project investment.
Right.
So we mentioned 11 million hectares in the state of Pará. And if you do a restoration project there, and one Amazon Impact Fund would say, pick a hectare, 2 hectares, 5 hectares. Away from the preservation conversation of the one Amazon token, it can be investment in a deal that deal with carbon rights associated with a reforestation project. A reforestation project can benefit from the data that we're collecting of the true soil DNA and the watershed and whatnot, and redeploy that strategy into a reforestation project in the state of Panama. That would qualify for an ARR type credit under gold standard.
So who cashes in that credit? What state,
let me
what
finish
country cashes in that credit?
You can take that voluntary credit as Microsoft and book it on your financials today. You may or may not get SEC type credit, but Microsoft can make that investment into a one Amazon invested reforestation project around a proper data. They'll have to go through the same methodologies that exist today with gold standard, with Vera, with ARR, ACR, and whoever, but that credit is now on a registry. That credit can be monetized. There really is no traded volume in this stuff, but it can be traded. But Microsoft, Google, anyone, any counterparty that wants to buy that would voluntarily register that credit, pull it off of that methodology. That credit would have higher value because we could deploy our data and our sensor data to it. So we would have higher value to Microsoft, but they can use that to offset their decarbonization strategy.
Well, listen, any company can offset their carbons, right? Anybody can do that, but they're not able to trade those credits, right? And what I'm saying is that when you're looking at a total ability to invest in a sustainable solution, of which I've had one for a long time, right? To be able to invest in that, you want to look at the total benefit you get. That's all I'm saying. If we're saying that, yeah, you get carbon credits, credits are able to be traded. And the only place you can trade carbon credits at this point, other than California, is Europe and with the EU, unless that's changed. You know, we've been trying for a long time to make it more acceptable, but we've been very, very slow in the U.S.
It's a bilateral, the voluntary carbon credit market. They're going through different things. There's multiple exchanges trying to pop up. There are certain exchanges in Europe that have registered credits that are very liquid, but the entire voluntary carbon credit system in size is a voluntary system. And it's bilaterally traded. So you can trade them. Right. Companies trade them all the time. Most of the large oil guys are probably the largest traders of carbon credits in the world. They trade them all the time on a bilateral basis. It's not traded through an exchange in a very fluid way right now. There's 2 listings in Europe that are completely illiquid. So you can trade them on a bilateral basis, just not a liquid instrument. That will get there eventually. So I agree with you. Europe is better at it. Europe's been doing it a much longer period of time, so is Asia. The US is not at all from a traded market perspective, but US corporates are buying voluntary carbon credits to a degree, and they're doing that on a bilateral basis.
Any other questions? Well, thank you again to our panelists. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much.